um, from our Soror Narly. I
You
think it's going to
sure?
be
I
very
could have read
beneficial
it.
to us
I
all.
refuse to believe
So
you.
it is 7:05.
I didn't
So
believe.
I am going to get started. But before we get started, I would like to open up in prayer. And I believe Brother Boggs is on the call. And Brother Boggs, if you don't mind, can you lead us in a quick prayer?
You gotta
Sure can, Brother Baloo. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right, good evening, everyone. If you're able to, bow your heads. Oh, gracious God, we come to you in the humblest way we know how, just to say thank you. Thank you for another day that you have bestowed upon us. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your mercy and your tender love. Lord, we thank you for the participants that is on this call on this evening, those who will be joining us as well. And Lord, we just ask you just continue to bless us and guide us and lead us in a special way. These are the blessings we ask you, son, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. All right. Thank you once again for everyone joining the call. We're going to jump right in just because I want to just get as much knowledge, as much as the information we could possibly get from Soror Narly. And before we get started, I really just want to tell you a little bit about her. So Soror Narly Simon is a seasoned federal contractor with a focus on nonprofit and foundations, federal implementation, donor relations, and grant compliance. She has recently overseen the implementation process of an AmeriCorps grant in the state of Georgia, working within various sectors such as public health, K-12 readiness, early learning intervention, senior care development, and transportation, and so much more. In addition to her work in Georgia, Sister Soror Narly also holds leadership positions at Glued Inc., where she serves on the board and provides opportunities to young girls in DeKalb County. She is also the grant manager at I Will Survive Inc., spearheading grant efforts. Furthermore, she is involved in Bosses Sip Tea, which they call BST, where she focuses on grant management and compliance. Narly's expertise extends beyond Georgia as well. She serves as the director of corporate and foundation relations at the Tri-State Hub, which is in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, where she successfully implements rental assistance programs, develop volunteers, and engage in federal donors. Additionally, she holds the position of chair of the education committee of the illustrious Iota Eta Zeta Chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you all our instructor and facilitator and educator of the day, Soror Narly Simon.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This is such a warm welcome. I'm super excited. I love nonprofits. I love foundations. And it really has become like a passion project of mine to help structure different nonprofits and different passion projects. So I'm always super excited to give away most of the knowledge I have every day for free. So we
Awesome,
could jump
awesome.
right in. Today, we are going to talk about the construction of a nonprofit. So a lot of us start our nonprofits because we're passionate about something, but then the passion is just one tier of what it is that we need to focus on. So today we'll dive right into how your nonprofit scale or template should essentially look like. So in our next slide, we have the agenda. And
there we go.
yay! So today we'll be talking about how you define your mission and vision. As you know, like your nonprofit is a passion project, so you have a why or you have something that caused you to create or want to obtain a different form of impact in a new area or in a new field that you feel like is lacking. Then you have your research and planning, which is essentially right after you have decided that, oh, I'm passionate about something. You start to research and find out what is the data within that particular area or that particular sector that is an actual issue. So we'll dive into what some of those look like. Creating an actual business plan. A nonprofit is a business. It does generate revenue. We don't use it as revenue. We use it as impact. So what comes in has to equally go out. So that's why you need a business plan, so that you know when you'll actually be running your business, since this is a business. You got to choose a name. You can't run a nonprofit without a name. That's, form a board of directors. You need actual individuals to be on your board so that you understand what the logistics are going to be or what they're going to look like. Incorporate your nonprofit. This is a major, major piece. A lot of people are passionate about their nonprofit and they're running their nonprofit because they created their business plan, but they haven't gotten incorporated yet. And that is something that is major, which is also important to our second piece of the agenda, obtaining your tax exempt status. For you to even get grants or donors, you have to be listed as a 501c3. It's just easier that way, Register for your state and local taxes. Yes, you still pay taxes as a nonprofit. Create your fundraising plan. This is where your money comes in. So we'll talk about monies here. Set up your financial systems. Once money starts coming in, there has to be proper allocations and what is this funding for? What is it supposed to be doing? And how do we get those particular impacts or initiatives up and running by the particular time frame? Build your team. You can't have a nonprofit with just one person. It's just a passion project. You have to have a team. You have to have people who are helping you with different pieces of it. So we'll dive into what that might look like. And then you launch and promote your nonprofit, and then you maintain its compliance. So the only way you can lose your 501c3 status is by doing some things that are just not in compliance at all, based on your tax exempt status, your actual grant reporting, or any reporting that you might be doing. So let's dive in.
Right.
So like I was saying, the first objective on our agenda is defining your mission and your vision. You have to clearly articulate your purpose for your nonprofit organization. There's a lot of passion projects that just exist. Nobody really knows what they do, but we know that they do something. But what we kind of miss sometimes is that the only reason why we don't know what it is that you may do as a grant writer or a grantor is because you don't have a clear defined mission. I don't know exactly what it is that you're doing or that you would like to do. I know that you're doing things. So making sure that you're very clear as far as, this is my mission, this is my vision, this is what the problem is that I'm looking to resolve in this particular community or in this particular sector. And then what is your long-term vision? Do you want to just do this 1 year? Okay, I want to feed the hunger or the hungry for one particular year, and then, well, what happens next year kind of deal. So defining your mission, defining your vision is very important on major, major scales, because that's our first introduction to your actual nonprofit. So research, so these are some of the mission and vision statements from some of our favorite nonprofits, or some of our known nonprofits, I should say. We have the World Wildlife Fund, which their mission is to conserve nature and reduce the most pressing threats to the diversity of life on Earth. Their vision is a world where people live in harmony with nature. You see how that's like, you're telling me what it is that you're trying to do, and then what you're looking to see, what your impact is going to be. So then we have Habitat for Humanity, who their mission is seeking to put God's love into action. Habitat for Humanity brings people together to build homes, communities, and hope. Their vision is a world where everyone has a decent place to live. See how it's like, I get the words and then I get here's the vision. Here's what you really want to see. When you look at Habitat for Humanity, you think of homes. You think of building homes, getting people into homes, and making sure that they have a secured structure of their impact of life. But many people don't know that Habitat for Humanity is actually a Christian-based nonprofit, and it does focus primarily on seeking to put God's love into action. That's their mission. So a lot of sectors where we meet nonprofits is learning about what's your mission and what's your vision. So your mission is the issue or the problem, and your vision is how you would love to see it look like. A world where people live in harmony with nature, a world where people have a decent place to live. Or Doctors Without Borders, it's a matter of, their mission is to bring medical assistance to people affected by conflict, epidemics, disasters, etc. And their vision is to bring quality medical care to people caught in crisis, regardless of race, religion, or political affiliation. So it's kind of like getting two sides of the coin where, okay, I know what Doctors Without Borders does on a general consensus, but when I look at their mission, what I'm looking at is how they're bringing the medical assistance to people who are affected, how they are partnering up with the local community around them to eradicate particular epidemics or conflict that has occurred during a pandemic. So from there, outlining what the vision is, where on the general consensus, we're just making sure that medical care is something that's accessible to everyone around, regardless of your race, your religion, and your political affiliation. So that's nonprofits. And then on the next slide, for-profits also have missions and visions. So just like your faves, your Google, your Tesla, your Starbucks, your Nike, they also have visions and mission statements as well. For Google, the mission is to organize the world's information and make it universal, accessible, and useful. The vision is to provide access to the world's information in one click. See how it's like you get the give and you get the take, where it's like, okay, this is the mission. This is what we're constantly working towards, giving or organizing the world's information, making it universal and making it accessible to anybody that would be in need of that particular information. Where the vision is to provide access to the world's information in just one click. Simple, sweet, and it just flows with it. So that's the importance of why it is that your nonprofit needs structure in its mission and its vision. You don't want your nonprofit to be doing everything, because that's not how grants are structured either. When you apply to a particular grant, depending on what the grant is asking for, we go straight to your mission and we go straight to your vision and find out what is your mission statement, what's your vision, and if you're doing that. That's, I guess, the hack of a nonprofit or for-profit business. And on the next slide, do we have any questions, concerns? If you do, please put it in the chat. I have no issues answering no questions. So our next slide, we went too far. We gotta go back one. Yay! So we have to do our research and planning. So you've picked your nonprofit's passion project, has grown to the point where you're like, this is an issue in my community. I want to figure out how to resolve it. I want to figure out how to get other people involved in this. So now you're going to do your research and your planning. You have already outlined what your mission is and what your vision is, which gives you a template as to who you're looking into, how you're going to be obtaining your donors or your fundraising tactics, or who your particular stakeholders will be in different initiatives. So once you're breaking down your research, you want to conduct thorough research to ensure that the need for your organization's services is actually needed in your community. So sometimes people just create a nonprofit because they're particularly or have experienced something, which of course it's horrible, but sometimes that's not what the community needs, and you create a nonprofit and maybe it does help like one or two people, but it doesn't scale to the particular heights that you would like it to. And that's usually because your research phase was not thorough. So a lot of what you felt is what you acted on versus what your community actually needed and how you would bring those pieces into your community through your nonprofit. And then from there, you would identify potential competitors or similar organizations and assess how your nonprofit will differentiate itself. which is very important. Just like a for-profit entity, you are going to have competitors. You're going to have people who are doing exactly what you're doing, and maybe they have more donors, more stakeholders, or maybe not even more donors or stakeholders. They just have higher names or higher logos as their donors and stakeholders and partners. And that's very important to find out who is around in your community. How did they get their donors in a particular way, or what conversations you need to start having so that you can obtain or be within that same cluster or circle if you guys are all doing the same thing anyways. It's always a good tactic to find out who's around you and within your community anyway, so that you can find partners for your particular initiatives or projects anyways within your nonprofit. So your nonprofit will be focused on particular aspects of your mission and your vision, but there are going to be times where you have an initiative that is new. Maybe it is a woman of color or a youth of color, where you have to start to implement different tactics of a particular sector that is not being tapped into through your nonprofit. So research and planning is very, very important so that you can actually plan out your year and how you're going to impact your community. Next. Okay, so then you create a business plan. You have to create a business plan, or else your nonprofit is just kind of swinging in the air with no direction besides your mission and your vision. Now, when you are actually jumping into your business plan, you start to get a little bit more technical as far as developing out a comprehensive business plan that outlines your organization's goals, strategies, target audience, and funding sources. So we left the passion side alone. Now we're in the actual business side. So this has to generate us different goals each year. So maybe one year our goal is to raise $49 million for our particular nonprofit. And we have to map out what those strategies would look like so that we can obtain our goal or get close to our goal. We have to find out what our target audience is. That's part of the initial mission, vision, and research planning aspect, where who are you trying to impact? Who do you want to see your flyers when you create them? Who do you want to volunteer? Who do you want to actually represent in your nonprofit is very important. Your funding resources is very, very important as far as making sure you're aware as to who you're going to tap into. If it's a new nonprofit, going through the building the partnerships, actually getting to know your partners and outlining them as far as this is my partner for these particular initiatives and these are my partners for those particular initiatives. It's very important to know who your funding sources are, so that there's no surprise, because some years people start their nonprofit in like December and they are incorporated, they've done their tax exempt, and they're like, okay, I really want to get donors, but that's not our time to be getting donors, because we have to find out who our donors are going to be and align them with what it is that we're doing. Include a budget detailing anticipated expenses and revenue streams. This is really important because you're going to need different budgets to outline different things.
Well, so all right.
Oh yeah, is it me? Sorry. Include a budget detailing anticipated expenses. You're going to spend money. Your nonprofit is going to spend money. That's the whole point of the impact versus revenue, but it's also going to make money. So you're going to have streams of revenue that are considered your donors, your stakeholders, your match donations, and any corporation donations that are written into your understanding or letter of intent. You also get the opportunity to find yourself grants. So there are going to be grants where they are particular to your mission and your vision. So that is one source of revenue that you would have to figure out where and how the allocation of that occurs. Some grants pay for salaries, some grants pay for operation. It just really depends on what grant and how that particular grantor is set up to fund it. Then we have, yes, one last revenue stream is Products and services. So your nonprofit can actually have products and services. So for example, there are nonprofits that generate events. There are nonprofits that generate t-shirts and swag. There are nonprofits that generate national conferences, and that's their product and service, where people have to buy tickets and come and get the opportunity to network with the execs or the potential partners and local movers and shakers. So that's also a revenue stream that some people tend to overlook, where your nonprofit is a business. It has to make money, it has to spend money. That's the thing. It has to spend the money within the community. So that's the only difference between for-profit and nonprofit.
All right, Soror Narly, I did have a couple of questions. So the first question was, when is a good time when you're making your business plan and going after grants? When is a good time? Is it at the beginning of the year, or is it in the middle of the year to start grant writing, or does it even make a difference at all?
It does make a difference. I would recommend that you take like at least 6 to 12 months to map out your nonprofit and just focus on the skeletons of your nonprofit, because when you do dive into the grants, everything changes. Everything changes because you're requesting funding from a particular stakeholder or donor who may have strings attached to that particular funding. So there might be a, oh, can we see this? And you're essentially saying, because you're asking for that funding, that you will do it, or you're think about it, or you're incorporate it, or you're implement it. So there are a lot of pieces that go into making sure that your nonprofit is solid before you introduce grants and funding to it. Because once you do introduce funding and grants to it, there's a lot more pieces you have to report, and you have to make sure you're in compliance always.
All right, awesome. And the next question was, with your nonprofit, can you host events outside of your mission and vision?
You can host events outside of your mission and vision, but it wouldn't be something ideal to do, because your brand awareness is very important as a nonprofit. So if we know you as the diaper bank and you host events where you bring in single parents or single moms to network, or you focus on passageways for them to be hired, or you give out diapers, that's what we know you for. So if you host an event that is outside of that realm, outside of kids, outside of anything around that sector, it would kind of make us wonder, what is your mission and statement? Because it then would make us wonder, okay, maybe this is a new initiative. So it really just depends on what your brand awareness is. If your mission and statement is pretty help all, I want to see the community effect, then we really will look for an event. Doesn't matter what it is. But if it's specific, then we want to see the diaper drives. We want to see we want to see those type of things as grantors and investors.
All right, thank you very much. All right.
So this is a nonprofit business plan template. The first thing on your nonprofit business plan template is an executive summary. It is a couple of sentences letting us know what your nonprofit is. Like, what do you do? What is your mission? What's your goal? A brief description of your programs and the services offered, a summary of your target audience and its beneficiaries. So who are we reaching out to and who benefits from this? Who do we reach out to get funding for? And why do we do that? It's kind of like a always writing kind of deal. Financial summary, highlighting key figures and funding sources. We want to know, as your potential donor, stakeholder, or even investor, what are some of the figures are we dealing with? Are you an organization that deals with $50,000 and less in a year, or are you in the category of dealing with millions and millions of dollars throughout the year? From there, there's a lot more components and aspects that are looked at, because everything about a nonprofit is integrity, transparency, and making sure that your impact is measured. So we can see large numbers of funding, but that just means that you have a really good grant writer behind the scenes, you have really great people that are going after the funding, but if that doesn't coordinate to what your impact is, then it does bring some sort of what's happening there. Then we have number 2. We have our organization description. You are going to detailed explanation of your nonprofit's mission and vision, history and background of the organization, legal structure, very important, because that's how we know how to fund you. If we are a nonprofit without the 501c3, we have the options of obtaining a fiscal sponsor. What your fiscal sponsor does is essentially they are telling us as the grantors, the donors, the stakeholders, the investors that I will be handling all the funding of this organization. I will be the person who handles the reporting. I will be the person who writes the grant. And from there will be funding that's allocated to the organization, and they have a specific structure as to what that's going to look like. But if you have your 501c3 status, then you just apply for your grants. I mean, you get a grant writer, and then your grant writer is so focused day in and day out is finding grants that align with your mission and your vision and your impact zones and your target audience. Then you need to make sure you have your board of directors and key staff members. Very important, your board of directors keep you in line. That is your governance system. Your governance system should not just host your friends. They should not just host like-minded individuals. They should host a lot of individuals who come from different walks of different aspects of that particular community. So if you're saying that your nonprofit is focusing on DeKalb County, so you're focusing on youth development and you want to make sure that the community itself is developed. So your board of directors would be filled with at least 10 people. That's our safe zone number of teachers, local movers and shakers, your maybe a college or university local that is within that particular sector that you're impacting, some sort of leadership from there, a leadership from your local volunteer group within your local community, so that when you meet with your board of directors, you can actually tackle different pieces. You can't focus on single moms if you don't have a single mom on your nonprofit board of directors. It's almost kind of like saying, oh, well, there's boards for teachers, but there's no teachers on them. So who's making these decisions? How are they impactful? And how are they measured? So have your board of directors, have your key staff and your board of directors within the initial planning of your nonprofit. They are essentially the same people. So your board of staff will be playing the same, or your board of directors will be playing your staff roles, making sure that you're in compliance, you're going after grants, you're structured, you're reporting correctly in the IRS, and all of those aspects. Once those phases of your nonprofit is over, you would be tasked with hiring staff members, your financial director, your director of relations, your director of funding, and those would now be the people who your board is making decisions based around.
All right, sounds good. So I do have a couple questions for you before we move to the next slide. So first one is by Brother Remy. Thanks for joining. Another Bigger and Better Business director. Thank you, brother, for joining. So this question is, how many people do we need to start a nonprofit, and can any of them be related?
You need on your board about 8 to 10 people to start your nonprofit.
All right.
Now, can they be related? They can be related. There are private family foundations that exist where it's just your family that's on the board of directors, and they make decisions based off of the funding or the money or the family money. How are you gonna move it? Who gets impacted, or who are the beneficiaries? That's the proper term of that funding. So your whole board's sole focus is moving that money in the places that it should be moved in. So if your brother is passionate in youth development and you're passionate in senior care development, and it makes sense to have him on the board because he brings ideas with the youth sector, and maybe there's a place where there's a collaboration where the seniors do kind of feel like they're missing out on some of the youth activities, and now your board of directors are planning something that brings them to those two initiatives together in an event or some sort of community give back. So it does work.
Okay. And the second part of that question is, what is the minimum number of board members required by the IRS needed to start a nonprofit? Is there a minimum?
There is a minimal of 8.
8. Okay.
Mhm.
Perfect. All right. That's all the questions I have in the chat for now. We can go to the next slide.
Yay. The next slide is your programs and services. Description of your programs and services offered. So if your nonprofit is going to offer passageway, ready for kids, or any of those aspects, you want to outline it and actually put it part of your business plan so that you can always, circle back to it or actually decide what initiatives fall within those particular programs and services. How you're going to market your programs and services is a big aspect as far as your impact numbers, because people sometimes do forget that nonprofits have to make revenue to impact the community. So if a donor leaves or something happens where that particular funding is not the same anymore, then you do have to either provide a service that generates a particular amount of funding, or making sure that the funding that is coming in for your programs are being allocated properly so that they can do what they need to do. So you need to make sure that your target audience and your beneficiaries is very, very important. So who are we getting the money from and who benefits from this money? Impact and outcomes of the programs. We want to know how the program is doing, or how has it been doing, or what do we hope for it to do during the longevity of the nonprofit itself. And then plans for program growth and development. Where's your program going and how much more development is it going to take? As long as your program is scaling, you're always going to be developing something. Market analysts. So you have to understand what your community needs, what's around, and what's going on. So you have to take some community feedback. You have to do your analysis on the community, the nonprofit that you're serving, or the other nonprofits, how are they serving? You have to identify the needs and the gaps. So that's where nonprofits fit, because you can have Walmart do something, but that's not the goal of it. Walmart is a global organization. It has its own nonprofit, the Walmart Foundation. So when it impacts on a different scale than impacting on a particular county that you live in, or a group of kids that you feel are not getting that opportunity to be exposed to particular impact numbers or impact zones. So making sure that you can actually fill the gap. So if you are a nonprofit in a particular community or sector, it would be nice for you to partner up with Walmart if your community needs things from Walmart or Target, so that you can actually keep the flow of those organizations going, because they only exist on a greater scale so that they can come into the communities on smaller pockets and gaps. Assessment of potential partners and collaborators. You need to find people that are willing to partner with you. You need to find individuals that are willing to collab with you. Collaborating is very important. It's very important when you're going after grants. It's important with donor relationships, as far as making sure who knows who. There's donors that are giving into programs just like yours, but you have to bridge the conversation, and maybe that is through a collaboration. Partnering up with one organization to execute out one event can give you some of the networking leverage for you to be able to speak to the executive at X, Y, and Z, or the chief community organizational person over at Walmart, so that you can actually bridge those gaps and get clear partners and collaborators, because your program and your nonprofit is really going to need it. Then you're going to need an overview of your competitors and your similar organizations. What are they doing? Who are they funding, or their beneficiaries? And how is it that we can find out who their particular stakeholders and donors are, and how can we either figure out partnership ideas or having our own conversations to have those individuals as our donors and our stakeholders. So doing your research is important.
Awesome, awesome. So I do have another question in the chat. So this question is Brother Holloway. If you do not have experience doing in-depth market research, can you recommend professional organizations to start with?
Yes, there are consultants. You can hire a consultant. Consulting teams do the analysis. They would actually even structure your business, your whole entire nonprofit for you. You just have to find the right consultant, and they'll be able to kind of structure you in the way that you want, just by letting them know what your passion is, what you have observed in your community in your day-to-day. And then from there, we usually just kind of take off and do our own community surveying, finding out what is in the market of that particular area. So that is what your federal contractors do. They go into different areas and map out different projects. So finding one and keeping that person and just mapping out what you want to see and how you want to see it. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Okay, so then we have our marketing and outreach strategy. So now that you have your bread and your butter, now you want people to see your bread and your butter. Now you want to actually tap into, how can I build out my marketing? How can I build out my outreach? How can I get people to know that I exist, and I can bring my target audience into my Excel document? That's the biggest goal. Your biggest goal is to get every single local entity or donor, commissioner, high profile family, high profile stakeholder to be part of your Excel document. That is probably your golden ticket. If they're in your Excel document, you can always reach out to them for any particular campaign, donor, relations, or just circling back on what particular grants they give out for nonprofits or foundations that are impacting your mission or your vision statement. So it's very important to find out, what are the characteristics in their giving? How do they give? How do I get to speak to them? Do I have to get in the newsletter? Do I have to get in the newspaper? Do I have to get on the news itself? Your goal is to find out how to get your logo or your letter in front of these individuals. So you have to do a little bit of research and find out, what do they do? How do they give their money? Where are they? What events do they host? Do they host a gala every year? You have to go to that. Your brand awareness is very important. People know your nonprofit, but they know you. And that's going to be the biggest piece of making sure your nonprofit's brand and its outreach is actually properly navigated, because you have to be part of the community. You can't just send emails and hide behind the email, or post the best social media flyer and then hide behind it. No. In a nonprofit, you definitely have to go outside. You have to go outside. The community has to see you. We have to vouch for you. Your commissioners have to see you. You don't have to go to every gala or every fundraising event. You don't even have to give at every fundraising event, but someone needs to see you. There needs to be some sort of conversation with you and your targeted audience, some sort of networking event that you are showing up to religiously, or just making sure you're bridging those gaps so that people actually know what your branding is, what your messaging is, how you carry yourself, how you speak about your organization, and where they can feel the gap exists as far as funding, staffing, volunteers, partnerships, sponsorship, so that they can help you sufficiently as well. So marketing, do your research, find your targeted audience, tap into them, get them to convert from an individual that is going to your local Kroger's to someone that is in your Excel document, that when your goal is to raise $25,000, you have an Excel document that is going to raise you that plus more. So marketing and outreach is very important, everyone.
All right.
Then we have our fundraising plan. So once you get your fundraising tactics in order, you have to create a plan because not everything is going to work for every organization. I have learned that through different organizations. People have a different swag, they have a different vibe. So you just kind of want to learn and adapt to what that looks like and how you're going to go after your particular funding. So some people like to go to the galas, or they have high profile individuals that they can tap into. And from there, those particular individuals will be able to give or provide a sponsorship based off of one person's connection. So one person can reach out to an individual and obtain the funding, and now that person now becomes part of your funding pool. So you kind of want to find out, okay, am I reaching out to individuals for a certain amount of money because of my fundraising goal? And what is my fundraising goal and objectives? And from there, what is my strategies? Am I going after individuals? Am I going after a cluster of people? And from there, finding out how you can raise your funds from grants, donations, events, which is usually the top three of successfully putting on a fundraising plan. Donor identification and cultivation, very important. That's your Excel document. These are your people that are essentially kind of like in your iPhone. Like if there's a problem, you're like, oh, I know this person will give me $5. Well, if there's a problem in your nonprofit, this person will give you $25,000. So that's your Excel document. It's very important to cultivate relationships with your donors. That means going to their events, going to their networking, making sure that if there is a gap, your organization can help fill in the gap. So most of the time, just making sure that you're asking for funding, but you're providing some sort of give and take so that the partnership can feel organic versus, oh, she just reaches out to me to ask me for that $5 every time she needs the $5. No, you want them to know, oh, okay, I know in December, instead of taking my $25,000 and giving it to this organization that only reaches out to me like once a year, that I can give it to this organization where every single time there is something that focuses primarily on my mission and vision, they invite me to, they engage me, they keep me engaged in what it is that they're doing. So naturally, when you're engaged in something, you want to give, you want to see them grow, you want to see them reach their impact heights or their goals. So that's always going to be important. And donors come in many shapes and sizes. Some person might just give you $5 every single month, where some people might be on the higher side and give much more than that. But your donors really matter on any scale, small, big. As long as you have a donor, that just means that somebody actually believes in your nonprofit. They believe in your impact. And even if it's $1 a day or $5 a month, they care. So they want to see something. And if you have a pencil or a notebook or some sort of marketing outreach that you're going to send to a high profile donor, it doesn't hurt to send something to that particular donor as well to keep that relationship going. Yeah. And then budget allocations for fundraising activities. Important. You don't want to pay more for your fundraising activity than what your fundraising is raising. That is a big piece. Now you're doing an event. That is not a fundraiser. Your fundraiser is supposed to bring in and generate funding, funders, donors, sponsors, partnerships, collaborations. It shouldn't be just an event that happens and occurs and then with hopes that it will make money. No. Fundraising events on a larger scale takes months. As a matter of fact, fundraising events that are happening this December have actually been planned and already mapped out last December. So right now we are obtaining funders, collaborators, partners, speakers. That's all happening each of the months leading up to that December wrap up of the fundraiser. So within January, all the way up to that finale, I guess, in December, if our goal is to raise $49 million, we should have at least $48 million by that December event. 6 p.m. of that December event, we should be raising $1 million at that event. So that's kind of like the nonprofit thing where you have to actually play the game to understand the game. If you're going to raise funding, it's going to take time. Nothing is going to happen overnight unless you have a big high profile funder that's just waiting to give each year in that particular sector. But if that's not it, then you want to each month tap into your different sectors, your different networks, your different donors, and obtain 50K, 100K, 200K as you build each month. So you would never reach your goal in just one night.
All right, great. So I do have another question that was in the chat. How do you search for grants? And do you obtain grants? What are some grant-based platforms you have used to find and obtain grants?
So how do you find grants? You find grants online. They are on grants.gov. You can find grants anywhere. NBA Foundation, any foundation really, you just go on their website, you go under their grant sector, they will have their grant listed for that fiscal year. If you're not using grants.com. Grants.com or .gov, sorry, is a federal site. Outside of that, I will use Instrumently. Instrumently streams out some of the grants that I'm looking at, and then they kind of guide me as far as who I should be looking into as far as the grantor. I've worked on Department of Transportation. Their grants are actually listed on grants.gov as well, but they're considered NOFOs, so they're a notification of a grant. So it's just a matter of like looking for different things. Different sectors call their grants different things. You might be looking for a proposal or RFQ or RFI or a actual grant, a concept paper. It's just a matter of what is it called and where do I find it? How do I find it? Grants.gov will be your go-to. From there, you can go to like anything. There's grants everywhere.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that.
Then you have your financial plan. You will be detailing what your budget includes. That's your income and your expenses. A lot of people believe that working in nonprofits or running a nonprofit, you don't make any money. That's actually not true at all. Nonprofit directors, executive directors, CEOs, presidents, even down to the interns, they all make money. Everybody gets paid. It's just a matter of making sure that your budget includes their income and excludes the expense of what's happening. Your expenses are going to look a little different each year based off of your fiscal pattern or what your initiatives of that particular year is going to be. But your income and what your salary is to your particular directors and executives, they are going to be a little bit more concrete. So you're going to know exactly what funding you need to start your year. And if you don't have that funding, then, you know, sometimes it's a matter of can't have those people on your team because you don't have funding to pay them. So making sure that your budget is detailed and it's very clear and you know exactly what's coming in, what's going out is going to be very important with your grants, donations, and program fees. When grants are written, they're written for specific things. So if you're saying you're going to do something with it, you wrote the grant, you got the grant, we want to see that get done with it, despite any allocation of your operation or your staffing or anything like that. We want to see majority of the grant going into what you said you were going to do with it. Donations, some donors give specifically for specific things. They might give a general donation as far as like $200,000 just to your organization. From there, you can allocate that funding as far as paying your executives, making sure your program is funded to a specific amount, making sure your fundraising goal has a particular allocation in it to start the year off so that you can fundraise more. That's all a big piece, and making sure that your financial projection is in track, because you don't want to start your nonprofit and then have all this funding misappropriated, then you're kind of starting over each year. It's not going to work like that. It's not going to be smooth, and you're going to find yourself constantly frustrated with your reporting. And you're not going to be in compliance with some of your grants, and your donors are going to ask some questions. So you want to just make sure that your financial plan on a general consensus is very detailed, it's outlined, and it has a 1 to 3 year plan in it, and that we know what you're going to spend money on already. Then you have your governance and your management. This is where you're going to organize your organizational structure and your roles and responsibilities. So you have your president that does X, Y, and Z. You have your executive directors that do X, Y, and Z. You have your directors that do X, Y, and Z. You have your chief of directors that do X, Y, and Z. You have your board of directors that do X, Y, and Z. Everyone has a role. Everybody should play their role. Once things start being introduced to the organization, grants, funding, stakeholders, it's very crucial for everyone to know what their role is and how their role and responsibilities convert against every conversation that's going to happen and who is invited to those particular conversations. Your policies and procedures for your board, very important. What can happen, what can't happen, how things should happen if something that shouldn't have happened happened. How to release someone from your board, how to dissolve relationships, how to end contracts. They all need policies and procedures because you don't want to start going rogue. You don't want to just start canceling contracts here because it felt right that day. You don't want to just do something over here with that funding because that's kind of where your vibe was at that particular day. That's not going to work. Everything about a nonprofit goes through the IRS. Everything you say to us, we have to make sure that's what's happening. That's what's occurring. So if you tell us that your president that you hired stole $250,000 and we're like, whoa, that's really horrible. How did you handle that? We want to see your policies and procedures. How did that person get dissolved, or maybe they weren't dissolved and maybe there's other steps in place that you took, and yeah, we want to know how things are happening. How do you manage your volunteers? What do you have planned for them? Are they just going to come and work 40 hours a week and you're calling that a volunteer? Like, no, we want to know exactly what are these pieces and what do you say that should be happening within those pieces.
All right, awesome. So I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
All right. So can members on your board be paid through your organization? Can they be on your board and hold a paid position within your organization?
No.
And then there's an add-on to that. You mentioned that nonprofits can pay board members. Question: have you ever been a board member of a nonprofit where it took advantage of the federal public service loan forgiveness program? Also, can nonprofits pay their board members, or have you any of the nonprofits you work for paid you for your services as a board member?
So nonprofit board, you're kind of like volunteering your experience or your expertise for free. So no, you don't get paid, but you can be a consultant. So the beautiful thing about grants is that if you are a grant writer, I'm a grant writer. So for me, when I'm on a particular board, I'm more focused on the grant aspect of how and why and where. So making sure that some grants are coming in, they have a consultant written in it. If there needs to be somebody that actually is overseeing or implementing the grant itself, I would write myself in it. That's one way that someone who is on the board would get paid, but typically your nonprofit is not going to take money from its revenue and its impact to pay you. That's actually unethical. So we don't do that. But what we do is if you would like to be part of the nonprofit, you can be a volunteer, you can be an intern, you can be a secretary, and you would get paid whatever your nonprofit would pay you. So it just really depends on giving up one seat to take another seat, and people do it all the time depending on what they're passionate about. But when you're on a board of a nonprofit, you actually are doing it for free, and on top of doing it for free, you pay to be on a nonprofit a board. So you're not going to find yourself on a like United Way board for free. No, you probably have to pay like something each fiscal year, and that's part of the fundraising aspect of it, where your board contributes into starting off the year. So just like organizations, like you have to pay your chapter dues, you have to pay, same thing. You have to get your board of directors to have a particular donation that they give each year to kick off the year, and from there boards don't get paid. The boards really focus on keeping everything in governance. Like that's the main focus for the board members. It's not about getting paid. But, once you get off the board, you definitely could be a member of the nonprofit and obtain a job and get paid.
Right, awesome.
Then you have your evaluation and impact measurement. So this is kind of like, okay, so you got the funding, you're saying that this is what your year is going to look like, this is your programming. Well, how are you going to measure all that? How are you going to take the data that you're doing at your event, and how is that going to be captured? So you have your methods of evaluating your program effectiveness and impact. So not only did you put on a great event, but it also did what it needed to do. It impacted the community, or impacted that particular area in the way that you had originally planned for it to do so. You have your KPIs, which is your key performance indicators, and your metrics. So how many people came out, or how many mothers, how many diapers, how many partners, how many people were actually impacted. Those numbers really matter when you start to go for funding and stuff like that. So starting to get yourself in that reporting nature is always very important for a nonprofit, because you do a lot of reporting. If you're not doing a reporting at least once a month, something is not going right. You are reporting all the time. You're making sure things are captured. You're keeping things for at least 7 years in a nonprofit. So yeah, a lot of keeping your evaluations and impact measurements very, very up to code and clear and concise to understand, and how you'll grow each year based off of your evaluations and your impact measurements. Yay. Then you have your sustainability, which is really my biggest piece, because a lot of people go through the first 6 months and they're kind of like, okay, I get it. I've done all the pieces I needed to do. I've submitted my tax exempt. I've got everything. Now I'm super excited. I'm super ready. Right. But now you have to kind of like make sure everything is sustained, because you don't want to start introducing grants into your nonprofit and funders and stakeholders, and now things are falling at the seam because your financial aspect wasn't thoroughly thought out and have gone through all the phases that it should have gone through. Or maybe there's no one sitting on your financial side, and there's not even a board member that works for any financial institution or has any financial knowledge, or an accountant, nothing. So there's a lot of pieces that are going to start to fall apart if you start to introduce funding where there isn't anybody that's watching or overseeing that particular funding. So your sustainability and your growth is going to be very, very major once you finish getting all your pieces and your ducks in a row. How am I going to keep this to keep growing and keep scaling? Plans for expanding the programs. You can't expand programs without money. You can't expand programs that are failing. So you have to make sure that your impact and your KPIs and all your measurements and evaluations are aligned to make decisions such as expanding or even dissolving your nonprofit, which some people don't talk about, but it happens. Sometimes, the passion starts to get a little bit more worky than passion-y. So you are like, okay, maybe this is not the route that I wanted to go down. And sometimes it happens that way. And, you just pick up next year when you feel like, okay, I got a better hang on it. I got new board members. I got different people that I could give different responsibilities to. I could see myself actually growing and going after some grants and getting the grants. Once I get them, how can I keep them? That's very important. How can I keep my impact numbers? How can I keep growing? That's very important with making sure your partners are aligned, your mission, your vision, your donors, your stakeholders, the grants that you go after, your board of directors, your volunteers, your key of staff. Everyone is essentially moving at the same beat. And that's the only way that you're going to be sustained and keep growing and keep building different strategies to keep being the nonprofit that's providing those impact numbers, that's providing the community with the diapers or the food or the community deserts that have a need for almost any and everything. So that's how you kind of keep scaling. Make sure your risk management and your mitigation strategies are up to code, because you're going to need it. There's going to be a lot of risks that you're going to gamble on. There's going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to at some point mitigate and either dissolve. It's always great to have a lawyer on your board, because that's they speak that language that you're going to need often. And it's always great to have someone who is focused on accounting at some sort of degree, whether they were an accountant at some point and they retired, or they are actively an accountant somewhere or work with numbers and financial institutions, because you're going to deal with a lot of legal jargon in dollars. And then from there, just making sure you have your additional documents, your resources, your organizational charts, who worked there, who's the president, who's the director, your resumes, your funding proposals. You keep all these things for like years, because at some point when you do go after grants or you get a grant writer, they're going to ask you for all these aspects. And you just kind of just take it and you give it to your grant writer. From there, your grant writer goes after all the grants that you have outlined. Like, I want to focus on this because this is my mission, this is my vision. You don't have to say much to your grant writer as long as you have a well thought out and clear nonprofit business plan. We can write any grant as long as it's clear, concise, and we get what's going on. You can just get a grant writer, and from there you start to get your grants. Your grant writer focuses primarily on the implementation and compliance of your grant, and you scale your nonprofit from there. So that's your nonprofit business plan. In the nonprofit business plan, I went through all the pieces where you would choose a name. So normal, you can't have a nonprofit without a name. What do we call you? And then you click. Forming your board of directors, recruit individuals who are passionate about your cause and possess diverse skills and expertise. You don't want to have the same thought process. You don't want to have, oh, okay, I have this nonprofit. I don't have anyone on my team that can create a flyer. I don't know anyone who thinks about fundraising. I don't know anybody who thinks strategically. You want those people. Those are the people that are going to scale your nonprofit with just their thoughts and just their, oh, let's try this, or I've seen this and it's free. That's why they're there. So it'd be beneficial to use your board of directors as such. Incorporate your nonprofit, very important. You have to choose a legal structure for the nonprofit, and you have to file the necessary paperwork with your state, because you do pay taxes. You need bylaws. People need to know what you're doing and how. Obtain your tax exempt status, please. You need to file your 1023 easy, or else you don't have a tax exempt. There's no such thing as us waiting for it. You file it, then the IRS let me know whether they have determined you are a charity or not. And from there, you can apply for your grants and go after your donors, because that's the only way you will obtain those particular type of funding, because they look for that particular tax benefit. Register with your state and local. Got to pay those taxes. Cannot not pay those taxes. Create your fundraising plan, your strategies, and raising your funds. Setting up your financial systems. You need your bank accounts. Just like your business account, your nonprofit will need to have a nonprofit business account. That's where your money will sit. That's where it will go. Escrow accounts, that's where they go. That's what gets audited. So when you need to go through your audit, your financial systems cannot be Cash App. You can't be Zelling things. It has to be concrete. You need a clear-cut financial system, clear-cut cards that you're using for expenses and how. You can't use your nonprofit funding for diapers to go and do a gala. That's not how it works. You want to keep your accounts separate. Build your team. You can't have a nonprofit with just one person. It's just a passion project. You have to recruit people who care. You have to recruit people who are in your community and are building impact within what they do. Partner up, collaborate. It's good for us. Launch and promote your nonprofit. Don't just leave your nonprofit structured and just, oh, somebody's going to find me. No, launch it like a website. Launch it like a business, like something that you just put your whole love into, and you want people to pick that nonprofit when it's time to give donations. You want them to say, oh yeah, I haven't seen a post from X, Y, and Z nonprofit in a minute. Let me go on their Instagram and see what they have been doing. Like, you want people to actively keep caring, actively keep wanting to see you build an impact. And from there is how you'll keep scaling. keep your compliance, please. Don't get grants and start doing crazy things. If you get the grant for $5,000 and you have to do things with the grant with that $5,000, please do what you said you would do with the grant with that $5,000. Or else you just kind of did all that work and we just sat here for an hour for nothing, because now the IRS is going to want to come after you for dollars and taxes and stuff that they now need some auditing for. So yeah, that's how you structure your nonprofit. So if you ever need me, please, I'm always, an email away.
All right. So
Yes.
first of all, Soror Narly, I want to thank you so very much for sharing that information. I know we was on a time crunch and you was able to give us a lot of information during that time. So thank you very, very much. And as everyone can see on this screen here, it does have our information. So please follow her, take down that information so that way you can definitely contact her if you have any questions. Soror Narly is so open to sharing the information she knows because she wants us all to do better and be better. So I definitely appreciate that so very much. And as you can see on this slide here, she does have a couple of events coming up. March 15th, it's going to be So You Think You Could Write a Grant. So that's going to be a grant writing class. And then also So You Think You Can Canva. I'm definitely taking that one. I'm going to be on there. I talked to her earlier about that. So this is going to take you through how to work Canva, how to create your own flyers, your own social media posts, and how to include that into everything that you're already doing. So we're very excited and really appreciate you today, Soror Narly, to just jump on this call and share the information with us. And right now, I just want to give anybody that want to come off of mute that have any questions. We have a few minutes to answer a couple of Q&As if you are available or want to have a question for us.
Go for it.
All right. Give a couple more seconds if you want to come off of mute to ask a question. If not, will the slides be shared? Yes, I did receive the information from Soror Narly, and definitely be sharing that out to everybody that's registered on the call. All right, and then there's also a recording that too as well. If you need some more information, I need to play it back. All right. So yeah, Brother Castro, just send me the information and your email, and I will get you make sure you're on that email distribution list when I send it out. I got you. No problem, brother. All right. Anyone else? All right. Well, Soror Narly, did you have anything to say before we end the call?
No, I enjoyed being here with everyone. I hope I helped build some capacity in your planning, or your maybe you were thinking about building a board and you're like, no, I can't pick that person no more. I hope I brought some clarity to some of the questions that sometimes we don't get the answers to when we're doing things. So I'm hoping that I can help with everything.
All right, and I got a couple of thank yous in the chat. People are thanking you, very informative. And then Brother Remy, I see you have a question, so come off of mute and ask your question, brother.
I appreciate it. Great job, Soror, with the presentation. I just had one question. I heard you say earlier that you're a federal contractor. I don't know if you want to ask you this question. How long have you been a federal contractor? And how did you go about becoming a federal contractor? And would you think about doing a workshop on how to help people become federal contractors?
Been a federal contractor since I graduated with my undergraduate degree, because nobody was really hiring a 20-something-year-old. Well, actually, a 20-something-year-old. So I actually have been doing federal contracting for a lot of years. But the beautiful thing about federal contracting is how individuals who have a typical job, you kind of scale your job each year. Not as a federal contractor. As a federal contractor, right now, I could be working on 6 different projects that stem from different sectors. I could have a sector that focuses on youth development. I could have a sector that's focusing on say streets and actual street development and structuring. I could be in public health. So there's a lot of different things a federal contractor brings to different projects that are not linear. So a lot of it is just my personal thing that I had done during my career is following the federal money. So I like to make sure I know, like, oh, where's the DOJ money going? Oh, it's going to this organization. So for me particularly, I would send an email. Hey, I'm Narly. I have been a federal contractor in DC. I see that you're obtaining some federal grants, and I would love to keep you in compliance. For me, it's like that because I focus primarily on leveraging where I've been and building capacity. So even if it's something where it's like agriculture and I've never had a farm, I don't run a farm, that's not my thing. But it doesn't mean that I can't read and understand what the proposal is asking of me and translating it into layman terms for that particular organization to say, oh, hey, like this grant is telling you that we need to get some sort of passageway, whether we employ individuals on this particular aspect of the land that we're asking for funding for, or we need to produce a produce, create a give back or whatever the case is for that particular grant to be in compliance. So I would love to teach something about federal contracting, but it's just different for everyone. Some people, they really focus on the consulting side of it, and they kind of just give you suggestions of different aspects. I focus more on the implementation and compliance side of federal contracting, where I want to be hands-on. I like to go see the sites. I like to meet people and see if this really helps, if this is like something that is just now in the community and is just in there, but nobody really know it exists. So yeah, I'm sure Brother Andre could put something together where we kind of, figure out what's the difference between a federal contractor and a full-time employee that works at a nonprofit. There's benefits on both sides. They're beautiful on both sides because you get to meet different people, different passion projects. Being a contractor, you really do get to meet different aspects of life that you had no idea of because it's not linear. You could learn something and you could be a federal contractor for about like 3, 4, 5 years and have worked almost like 15 years of somebody's actual job because you're doing so many different things. You're doing budgeting, you're doing mitigation. Maybe now you have to partner with a lawyer. So now you have to learn law jargon. And now for a year straight, your brain is focused on producing numbers or producing impact for lawyers. So now you're thinking like a lawyer. So it's just different. Like when I'm in public health, I think like someone who's like, I need to figure out how to get these resources into the community, whether I have a passion in the medical field or not. The passion itself is people across the field.
For sure.
So I hope that helped.
It did. It absolutely did, Soror. I appreciate it. I definitely would like to follow back up with you about it. I know you can work something out with Brother Blue. Maybe, but I'm also wanting to do something probably like a town hall on federal contractors, and a couple people that are in that industry. I'd love to tap your brain about the compliance aspects, since that's to be like your passion area. Do you have a LinkedIn as well? Because I don't see that on.
I do have a LinkedIn. It's my first name and last name. So it's Narly Simon.
Okay. Okay. No worries. All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Brother Remy and Soror Narly. And just to let you guys know, we have next month, we're going to have Investment 101 on March 14th. So that's going to be the basics of investing. Then April, we'll have a collaboration with the chapter in Florida that we'll be doing generational wealth class. And then May, we're going to have a how to build a business plan. So we have some great things coming up that I'll be sharing with everyone over the months. And we're pretty excited about it and to be able to educate our community and our brothers and sisters. And on behalf of KAS, Kappa Alpha Sigma Chapter, I want to thank you all so much for being on this call. Soror Narly, we'll be talking, but I just appreciate you for sharing that information. All my state Bigger and Better business directors and regional Bigger and Better business directors that were on the call. Thank you very much for being on the call, and everyone have a great evening and appreciate you all once again. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.